What is up, Mets fans? Welcome back to a special episode of the Mets'd podcast, second half preview. It is Thursday. There's an off day. There's no baseball, but the Mets will be back playing the Marlins on Friday. We'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. But we just kind of want to recap what was an insane first half for the New York Mets to start the 2024 season, as well as give you a little bit of a preview of what's going to go on in the second half. We've got the trade deadline. We just did a special episode on the YouTube channel only. James, or did you put it out on the podcast stuff too?
I put it up in the podcast.
Okay, but if you want to see the YouTube version of it, there's some videos over there. Go check out the YouTube channel, Mets'd Podcast. Appreciate all you supporting over there. But yeah, we're just going to talk about anything that could possibly happen in the second half, and I'm going to ask James some random, awful TikTok-y questions throughout the middle of it, so you guys will be able to see how he reacts to those. He's not prepared for it. As always, make sure you guys follow us on all our social media, at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I already told you about the YouTube channel. You want to see our pretty faces, go check that out. And if you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. I spoke to you like 3 hours ago, so I don't even want to do the, hey, how you doing bullshit that we normally do. Let's talk about the Mets.
That wasn't even 3 hours ago. It was fucking like 9 hours ago, you idiot.
Well, I mean, listen, when I'm now in air conditioning, for those of you who have
you
seen
changed
it,
locations.
I've changed locations. I've changed states. I'm underground as opposed to above ground. It's a great day right now. I'm loving this. It's like 65 in the basement. It's amazing.
It's too fucking cold. But again, want to recap the first half first, you guys, before we really preview the second half, because the Mets just had one of the most completely ridiculous, batshit crazy first half of baseball that not even just the Mets have ever had. I think almost any baseball team in the last decade has ever had. It is crazy. Yeah.
I mean, I just got a brain blast tweet. I know you listed out the crazy shit from first half is exactly how you said it. Do you want to have a draft? You want to draft the craziest things that happened in the first half?
Let's draft the craziest things happen in the first half. Now we kind of have the queue right here. Like we have the roster in front of us.
All right, I'm gonna flip a coin on Google to see who gets the first pick. Let's go ahead and do flip a coin. Good podcasting. Right. We're doing this literally on the fly. I'm gonna let you talk while I pull it up.
I mean, talk about what? Just give me heads. I'm ready to go.
You want heads? Okay, it's heads. Yeah. You got the first pick.
That's it. All right, first pick. Crazy things that happened in the first half. I think that's very easy. It has to be Jorge Lopez. I am the worst. I am the worst fucking teammate in the league.
I think I've been looking the worst teammate probably in the whole MLB. So
I think that's easily the craziest thing that happened this in the Mets season, in the baseball season. For anybody that forgot, or like we say all the time, was just in a coma for the first half and woke up now, we're like, oh, the Mets are a few games over 500. This is fun. Jorge Lopez blew like the Mets fourth game in like a week and a half against the Dodgers in the day game. It was the day of Rangers. Panthers, no, it was Hurricanes. I don't remember what series it was. It was like the day of a Rangers playoff game, Mets day game into that game at night. And he got taken out of the game, untucked his jersey on the field, threw his hat and threw his glove over the net into the stands, and then got on a microphone press conference after the game at his locker. And then Steve Gelbs took the wrong quote and ran with it, and it went super viral. He said, I play for the worst fucking team in MLB, and then was removed from the team shortly after.
And I don't believe he's been picked up by anybody since either. So
no, I think he's pitching in AAA in the Cubs.
Oh, okay, so someone did pick him up, and Cubs haven't been very good. So maybe there's a little stink to Jorge Lopez that we weren't too aware of. All right, Jorge Lopez is pick number one. Am I gonna run it back? We're going snake here. Do I get two in a row?
Yeah, of course. That makes no sense.
So I'm gonna go with Grimace for my first round pick. The fact that this fat blob that is a secondary character to Ronald McDonald of the McDonald's franchise completely turned this team around. The most purple thing this team's done all year during the Pride Month, and there's thoughts that Grimace might even be gay himself. I mean, Grimace turned this team around. Since they got him, they've been one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best offenses in baseball. Does it coincide with Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor playing MVP caliber baseball? For sure. Mm-hmm. Are we going to credit a purple creature instead? For sure. We're Mets fans. We like to not give our stars credit and give it to ancillary characters instead. So I'm going to go with Grimace as my first pick here in the first round. Second one, man, do I want to just pick like a good... I think I'm going to keep with the good vibes. I'm going to pick Jose Iglesias. Oh my God. Jose Iglesias gets called up from AAA, completely changes the vibes of this team. Apparently was a huge reason why Mark Vientos is even playing well, just kept his head level and straight through all the tough times that he had going on in AAA. He's been kind of a leader, and he's also a Latin pop star now with his hit single OMG. Performed it on the field after a game, which only the Mets would ever have a player do a concert after they win a Friday night game. Like, it's just so insane. But since he's got here, the vibes have been incredible, and he has been a more valuable player than Luis Ariz.
Yeah, very much more valuable player. Jose Iglesias, the show is so big now. He did that at All-Star Weekend, too.
Yeah.
In fucking Texas. That's how
Shohei
big this is.
Ohtani took a picture with him at the OMG side. He was like, I got to meet Jose Iglesias.
Jose Iglesias went to the All-Star game not as a player while he is still a player, which is just the most amazing thing. But that was definitely the next one on my board. Now I got to think. Because I'm going to do one that's really stupid. First thing right here. Julio Teheran started the game for the Mets this season.
Interesting.
That was probably one of the craziest things. He didn't get out of the third inning on a weekday game in Atlanta, and he did not pitch for the Mets at all after that either.
And they won that game. They came back, and that was like such a sick comeback win. I was in Florida with my cousin and my dad on vacation, and we're watching the game. We're like, oh my God, here it goes again. They're like, they're coming back. They're doing this.
I was in Morocco. I watched the replay of the game in the morning on a bus to a waterfall. But that was my next one. Just the amazing thing this year that Julio Teheran started a game for the New York Mets. And then next one, see, now we can go basically in any direction here. I think I'm going to go with April Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett is a pitcher that we might remember for the rest of our lives, depending on how the season winds up. If Reed Garrett winds up riding the ship this year, becoming like a worthwhile seventh inning guy down the stretch, the Mets make the playoffs, he pitches some big innings, then he'll always be like, oh, Reed Garrett had that really nice year. But if he doesn't return to form and like this fatigue or this elbow inflammation stays, and he just becomes the guy who for 6 weeks to start the year, the 50% strikeout rate, and like basically, and still leads the Mets in pitcher wins, still on July 18th, you guys are listening, leads the Mets in pitcher wins with 7. That will go down as one of the most amazing things that we ever remember for like a single moment of stupid Mets season. So April Reed Garrett's my next pick.
I got to say, in true James and Mark fashion, you're focused very on field. I'm focused very off the field because my next pick, Seymour Wiener. I mean, there's just no doubt that one of our biggest tweets ever is not going to be one of my picks. This old man, this veteran on opening day comes out to be honored, given a flag by a Mets player, and his name's Seymour Wiener, and immediately takes the internet by storm, sparks a special hot dog promotion that the Mets do during a game that apparently got out of control as well. Shout out Seymour Wiener. If he wants to come on the podcast, open invitation. I'll come to you, Seymour. We'll find you. We'll do it wherever you need it to be. I doubt he's getting on StreamYard, but that one's definitely got to be on there. And then, what's the next one I'm going to do? I really like the chaos ones here. I think I'm going to go with Joey Wendell.
That was my pick.
I'm going to go Joey Wendell. Remember he was on this team? Remember they chose to play him over Jose Iglesias? I mean, it's like almost racist, but like the fact that this guy...
Almost.
The fact that this guy got given a shot is borderline insane. Like he was terrible with the Marlins last year. We probably should have known that his career was over when he could barely crack a horrendous lineup, even though they somehow made the playoffs. And then he was like, I think the first guy David Stern signed, which is crazy because everybody else has basically been good except for Joey Wendell, which was the first move he made. Just felt like he really rushed because he wanted to cut Guillorme and make sure everybody knew that we didn't want that guy around either. It was bizarre, and then he played for the Braves because the Braves tried to do their voodoo magic, and it didn't work, and that was amazing.
No, you're confused.
No, Joey Wendell was also a Brave.
And Zach Short?
Yeah, and Zach Short, both of them.
I thought just Zach Short.
No,
I was going to be like, that's almost racist.
I think. All right.
I think it was just Zach Short for sure.
I'm checking.
My last one, this is an extra stupid one because it's just one of those like little things that happens where you're like, why did that happen? That really happened? That crazy play, I think it was in early May, when Pete Alonso was coming home on a sacrifice fly in the 9th inning and just basically missed home plate on a play that would have tied the game for the Mets, where he was like 6 inches from home plate before the ball was in the catcher's mitt, and he somehow just found a way to miss it. So that's just PP and Pete, something ridiculous that happened this season. I just can't even recall. And then honorable mentions here. I think the Lindor standing ovation.
Your last pick. You have your last pick.
Oh, that was my last pick. I'm done.
No, you only have 4. You have one more.
Oh, we're doing 5?
Yeah, let's do 5. You got to do 5. That's a good round number.
I figured we'd do 4 each. All right, then my last one I think is the Francisco Lindor standing ovation.
Okay.
Because Francisco Lindor, like the worst 2 weeks of his career, he had like 2 hits and 55, 60 at-bats, which is shocking, even just in terms of like a luck standpoint. And for the third straight year, the entire fan base turned on him for some reason. Just seems like something that happens if he doesn't hit 400. So, yeah, and then we gave him a Twitter. Mets came together, Mets Twitter, gave Francisco Lindor a standing ovation. And since that happened, he's basically the best player in baseball, at least the best player in the National League. So shout out Mets fans for being positive and helping him through that.
Yeah, a rare positive moment there by the Mets fans who we know sometimes don't like Francisco Lindor for no reason. Final pick, I think we're getting a lot of value here. Edwin Diaz being ejected for sicky stuff, and just the fact that
That's a good one.
his season has been chaos. It's been insane. There's been nothing normal about Edwin Diaz's first season back after a freak injury. That's going to be my last pick. I hope he turns around in the second half. I hope we get the old Edwin Diaz back, because my heart can't handle this Edwin Diaz. This is almost Mark can't watch Edwin Diaz moments again.
But it's not even can't watch for different reasons, because not like it is like you don't trust him. Like back in the day, I remember you really not trusting Edwin Diaz, and it was pretty warranted. But now this is just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like It's not like we used to love Edwin Diaz because it was, I can take a deep breath in ninth inning. And I don't think any Mets fans have ever done that basically in their lives. And now we're right back and just, I don't know what's going to happen right here.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted to take another opening day moment, the Hoskins Jeff McNeil slide, but I think that killed Jeff McNeil. So I did not take that one. But just some of the other stuff that's on this list from the crazy first half, I'll take a few here. James, you can fill in some of the others. So we had the Hoskins, Jeff McNeil slide and fight. Also, remember when Abner Uribe got that save in game 2 and like did like a fucking gun thing to the Mets dugout? That was pretty badass. Now. Yeah, he's not even good anymore, apparently. How about when the Mets started 0-5 and then Pete Alonso with the home run on the Reed Garrett save day? I went on a date that day and I was freaking out because it was in the corner of my eye. And I'm like, yes, just what's going on? I'm like, Pete Alonso just hit a big home run. Mets are going to win the first game of the year.
I think that was also when I was still on that trip. And we podcasted after you did that date when I woke up, like 2 a.m. for you and like 8 a.m. for me.
That was a 2-date day. So, yes.
There goes Mark. There goes Mark. You remember when Michael Tonkin pitched for this team?
Sleeper cell fucking asshole. Yeah, I do.
He just kept coming in extra innings with the man out base, and shocker, he kept giving up runs. It's nice to think about back in like that string in April when things were bad, how much it seems like Carlos Mendoza's grown in a short period of time as a manager. Sure. How much more comfortable he's gotten, how much better I feel like his decision-making has been, how respected he seems to be by this entire clubhouse. This was 2 weeks before J.D. Martinez swung a bat for the Mets. Like, think about how long ago that was. Oh, man. That same series that Julio Teheran pitched, we scored 16 runs in Atlanta. Yeah. That was incredible. It
was an awesome day.
That was such an amazing day. Then we cut Zach Shore shortly after that. Remember when we crushed Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shota Imanaga?
Like I'm sorry to realize I went on a date with the same girl who's the Pete Alonso home run day when we crushed Yamamoto. She might have some good vibes.
Yeah, what's going on? It's been 2 months. Maybe you should call her.
Got to figure that one out.
Remember that horrible day where the Rays stole 7 bases in one game?
Yeah, I do. I do remember that. That was hard watch.
Do you remember Omar Narvaez?
I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't remember Omar Narvaez. No, he's going to go down. If we ever do the worst Mets players of all time, Omar Narvaez is going to be a tough candidate to beat.
Yeah, one of the worst 45-day stretches in the history of baseball, Omar Narvaez. That Sunday in London when Luis Torrens' supremacy, he made that play to end the game, and it got slid into by fucking rat Garrett Stubbs.
And also your first in-person Mets win of the year was in another country.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I like that one a lot. Just similar how that thing about Minaya, where Minaya had pitched in the capitals of 2 countries before the United States of America.
Yes, which is very funny. And then he pitched in D.C. So he's now pitched in 3 world capitals, country capitals. Pretty funny. How about when J.D. Martinez came back and was like, okay, a little bit slow, and he's like, oh yeah, I still remember how to hit. I'm still one of the best pure hitters in Major League Baseball. That was really fun. Led into the week where they just beat the absolute pants off the Texas Rangers, which was also so much fun when Brandon Nimmo and Lindor and all these guys were like, oh, we're just way better than you, which is great against the defending World Series champions.
And then Alvarez got that big hit, and that big comeback game on the Tuesday night. That was a really fun series. That was the series where things finally start to click back again. Yes. I was like, this Mets season's officially fun again. Like, we're back.
Francisco Alvarez was back.
Yeah, when he came back, Francisco Alvarez not missing most of the year. Basically, every single game Francisco Alvarez has played could be like on this list of like things I really enjoyed from the first half.
Yes, and because the Mets win when he plays. That's just simply how it is.
Here's another one. Mark Vientos and Brett Baty. Remember when Brett Baty played the first 30 games of this year, and then Mark Vientos came, and now is one of the best hitters in baseball?
Yeah, though that was a twist I did not see coming. Honestly, you could have told me that Baty would get sent down, but I didn't see Vientos being as good as he is, and he's just an absolute stud right now. Where would we be without him? Not the same.
No, we're even close. And we swept the Yankees, which is fun because we play them again in a week.
We kind of starting the knife in their back. Now we're just hoping the rest of the AL East can twist it and really do the kill shot.
And us next week, we got to just take them again in that fucking horrible stadium. The fact that we were 13 games under 500 and we got to a playoff spot in 6 weeks, it's pretty fucking dumb.
That's awesome. I mean, the fact that the first half ends and we're 3 games over 500 in the wild card, I don't know how we got there, but we did. We did it, boys. We did it. And that's about everything for the insane first half that we want to talk about there's probably some more things I just don't even remember because we rattled off 25 different wild things that happened, and that shouldn't happen in an 85 game stretch.
No, but it should for I think 95 games now.
90, whatever. At one in every 4 or 5 days, there's something crazy going on in the Mets world.
We've had multiple masks. Oh, and even last week, recent addition, the dog Iggy.
Oh, yes, eating the hot dog.
I don't even know. What kind of dog is that? I literally have no idea what kind of dog it is. That's just like a rich person dog to me.
Is that a greyhound, the ones that like race?
But that's like a mini greyhound. Greyhounds are huge.
Are greyhounds huge? Oh, yeah, they are.
Very long. They race.
Yeah.
You want to watch a Chihuahua race?
Yeah, I'd watch a Chihuahua race all day.
I guess I kind of would watch a Chihuahua race, but as long as the animals are kept in humane conditions, of course. I don't want P to come after us. Peta's got eyes everywhere.
They do have eyes everywhere.
Everywhere.
Honestly, you know what would really ruin my day? If I walked out of my apartment and I just got blood thrown on me. It would ruin my day.
That would make mine if you got blood thrown on you.
Okay, well.
But, all right, that was enough of the nuts-ass first half. This is just a nuts-ass episode. But big storyline to the second half. I think there's a few things that are going to drive this Mets team, drive this Mets season to actually figure out if this will be a playoff team or just a team that kind of runs out of gas here after this insane run of momentum late in the first half. And I think the number one thing that people want to hear, and I think the number one thing that the Mets can do, either to show what they believe of this team internally, is going to be how they handle the trade deadline. This trade deadline in a year where there are so many teams buying and there's not really that much available on the market right now, especially not that much that's really, really attractive. There's some things that are really, really attractive, but there's nothing in that like B and C range where I think the Mets really want to shop.
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense for them to buy. And then how David Stearns manages that in his first trade lane with the team. And then if they try to split the middle, shoot the gap, thread the needle, and actually sell a few things to take advantage of how much of a buyer's market it is.
I know Dacomo's been reporting that the Mets aren't probably going to be able to trade Severino and Manaea because they're so in it, and they do want to make the playoffs. Like the Stearns in the front office, they want to make the postseason. They want to show that this team is good in a year that was not necessarily supposed to be considered a success by making the postseason or not. But they're very impressed with how this team played going into the second half. So I think it's going to be tough. But again, I caution Mets fans. David Stearns traded Josh Hader in the middle of an NL Central division race at the deadline.
He was tied for the division lead in 13 games over 500.
Yes, and he said, best closer in baseball, get him out of here because you're giving us a lot back. So I think the way the Mets are going to go is if the right offer comes around for a Severino, Manaea, Quintana, I don't think we're trading any hitters, including Pete, JD Martinez, Harrison Bader, any of those guys. I think they're all going to be Mets for the entire year. But I think Manaea, Quintana, Severino, and anybody in the bullpen that someone could want outside of probably Edwin Diaz, I think could be traded if given the right pieces back. And you mentioned how the Mets need those BC pieces kind of at the deadline. They aren't available. You want to know why? Because we got them.
Yeah, and a lot of teams like us have them. It's just with the expanded playoffs right now, there are so many teams in contention. Like, I almost think the Nationals, we talked about last episode, are like, oh, thank God, we can actually sell.
Yes.
Like, we're finally out of it. This is awesome. But in the National League alone, I'm loading up the standings right now. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 teams in National League within 3.5 games of the Mets for the final wildcard spot.
Wow.
And the Mets are only a half of a game behind the Cardinals. Yeah. So there are 8 teams within 4.5 games of each other right there. 4 games of each other for these last 2 wildcard spots. Even the Braves are only 4 games ahead of the Mets right now. So there's a huge jumble there of a lot of teams that can make it. The only teams in National League that are actually out of it are the Marlins and the Rockies. The only teams that
literally
the Nationals are selling, but they're taking themselves out. They're only 6 games out with 65 to play. They're not exactly out of it. And then you even go to the American League. It's a little bit more spread out, but you have the Royals, the Astros, and the Rays all within 5.5 games. But the Rays are probably moving out to sell. And then the Rangers, I think, still want to try and win, but they're 7.5 games out. Tigers are 7. I think they try to win, but I just don't think they know how to win. But there's just a lot of teams that are kind of still close enough to a playoff spot to not totally justify selling. And we're only 12 days away from the deadline. You know, it's the 30th this year.
Oh, I thought it was like August 2nd. I thought it got a weird one.
July 30th.
Oh, okay.
Soon. And 6 p.m. too. So
why not the 31st of July either? That's a tough one too. I hate that it's just this arbitrary day of, I guess the 31st is just fake end of the month too, but I wish we had a universal day every single year. That would be nice.
It's on a Tuesday afternoon too, which is just weird. It's Tuesday at 6 p.m. is the trade deadline.
I mean, I'll be streaming.
It could have been Wednesday.
Coming over for the stream? We ripping that again?
Oh yeah, I think it'll be the fourth annual.
Yeah, of course. Good. But yeah, we'll be talking a lot of trade deadline there. Aggressive wise, I know like you just said the teams that could be moving, should be moving. Is there anybody from the last time that we spoke that you're thinking could make more sense for the Mets now? Because I think the Blue Jays are going to be selling for sure now. It looks like that. I don't think Vlad Jr. is in the books, but like they have some pieces that might be interesting maybe.
My brain keeps going back to the similar kind of relievers we keep talking about. And the main guys there are Chad Green from the Blue Jays, Jimmy Garcia from the Blue Jays, if he comes back and pitches a little bit and shows he's healthy before the deadline, and then just weirdly John Brebbia from the White Sox. Like I think I'm the number one John Brebbia fan on earth right now.
And Eric,
but the guy still has like a 30% strikeout rate, and his FIP is like 3.2, and his fastball still has good life on it. But I don't know. Like someone DM'd me today. They were like, "What do you think are the Mets trade deadline options?" I was like, "It's basically the same." Like the one team that has like an inflection point is probably the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah.
Where if the Giants decide to sell, the Giants have some pretty interesting things I think the Mets would covet, namely their bullpen. Both Taylor and Tyler Rogers, I think, would be great relievers for the Mets to have. Taylor
bring the Twins
being
over.
Taylor being a lefty and Tyler being strange. Tyler has still another year and a half of control, and the Giants don't exactly have money issues, but they might just be able to get a lot for him because he's quite good. Your boy Puke Jackson, they'll definitely trade if they decide they're out of it, but he is not very good. But he can breathe and pitch. They'd probably shed some of this rotation because they have all of Alex Cobb, Robbie Wright, and Keaton Winn due back within the next 3 weeks or so. But like I don't think they would trade Jordan Hicks on the contract they just signed him for. He's also been struggling as a starter. He hasn't completed 6 innings since like the middle of April.
Striking
but they
out
they also have bats I think would be traded and could
Conforto.
Get things. Conforto and Flores weirdly being two of them. Wilmer seems like he's finally fallen off the edge this year as about to turn 33-year-old, but Conforto is finally playing decent baseball. Matt Chapman they just signed. They probably want to dump him.
Hearing Wilmer Flores is 33 is like that's like devastating news.
Yeah, that's very bad.
I mean, that really ruined my night. I think I'm hurt.
They are the team though that they can add a little bit more juice to this market. Like Lamont Wade would be a get for the Mets as a lefty.
The problem is, I don't think they're going to trade though. Farhan Zaidi's fired if they don't make the playoffs. So I think
that's what I'm saying. But they also might just, I don't know, like maybe he just goes down with the ship, or maybe he gets the stamp of approval.
He's like, I can't wait to make this organization better for the next guy. Like then nobody does that.
No, you're all right. I mean, maybe again, like the Diamondbacks had this hot streak. I thought there was a chance they could have fallen out. Now they're right in the thick of it. Like the Giants are the one that makes sense to me. Like the Cubs are going to sell. Like I have them firmly in the sell right now, even though they did go 7-3 in their last 10. But they also just don't really have anything that good to trade at all. Like their roster,
that's pretty much it.
Their roster kind of stinks. Like it's amazing that they pay Craig Counsell all that money and still aren't a playoff team. But I guess like maybe they're going to cut Nito. I don't know. You want Patrick Wisdom? No, they won't. I don't even want him at all.
No.
Miles Mastroboni. Like they don't have a lefty hitter and they don't have a reliever. They're the perfect worst trade partner for the Mets.
I think the Mets have the Marlins up next and the Yankees, right? I feel like after the Yankee series, there'll be like 6 or 7 more games played by most teams in Major League Baseball at that point. I think that will be a spot where you will officially know who is going to be buyers and sellers by that point. Just because you're going to be a week away from the deadline. You would have played another week of baseball. A team gets cold. All of a sudden, they're 8 games out. A team gets hot. All of a sudden, they're 2 games out. Like that's going to be, I think, the big moment of, we can go to the Tigers and we can start contacting Riley Green. No, I know that's not the case. We're throwing it out there. But there are some other players on that Tigers team that I'd love to have, especially in that bullpen. So it's going to be interesting. Again, we are the worst podcast in that we will not bait you guys and tell you that you should go after Garrett Crochet. Like, I think they got a real shot. I'd love Garrett Crochet. I would kill for him to be on the Mets. Do I think we're going to have the best package? Absolutely not. I don't think there's a shot in the world.
Crochet is also such a weird trade candidate. I wrote about pitchers with innings limits for Roto World on Wednesday, and he has thrown over 100 innings already this year.
Yeah. And
the White Sox waited until last week to start limiting his innings. And you know what they did to limit his innings?
What?
They pulled him after 2 perfect innings his last start before the All-Star break. After he's been just pitching as much as he wanted to this whole month. And he's thrown like 30 innings in the last 2 years combined. So it's like, what are you going to do? Like it's going to be a funny case study on like if innings limits might work. Because if he stays with the White Sox, he probably throws 30 or 40 innings the rest of the year. And if he gets traded, he will probably throw 100.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what's going to happen with him, but I feel like a team could trade for him and then he might just like have like significant fatigue. But he's weird. Like it's very bizarre that happening. Whereas like same thing with Kopech, but Kopech's just weird mentally. But also this Tigers bullpen, I'm going all over the place right now.
Even like
They're-
Tarek Skubal a name that's being thrown around right now. The Dodgers and Orioles are apparently
Orioles.
super aggressive, to which we're not going to beat either of those teams' packages. It's just not going to happen. They're World Series teams. Those are teams that are trying to win the World Series this year. So they're going to really, really go for it, especially if they're competing with each other to get a guy like Tarek Skubal, which is a shame because he's sick. But he's another guy too who's thrown no innings in his career at all.
No, he I wrote about him too in that same piece. He's never been above 125, 130 about there. And the last 2 years combined, he's only at about 200. And this year he's already at 117. Yeah. And he's the betting favorite for the Cy Young Award. Like it'd be bizarre for them to stop pitching him, but also like it would be stupid for them to keep pitching him. Like I don't know, like both things are true at the same time. Same thing with Skeens right now, where they said before the season Skeens had a 150 inning limit. And now he's throwing 100 this year, and the team is like pushing for a playoff spot. And it's like, all right, like you have 96 games. 60. I wrote that wrong. No, they have 60 whatever games left in their schedule. They have like 13 more revolutions through their rotation. He's gonna blow through that if he throws more than 4 innings to start. Like, there's no way you can do that. So now it's like, do you want to make the playoffs? Do you want to preserve him? This is always a funny conversation too, because the Nationals did this with Strasburg. They're like, we're stopping him pitching right now. And he got injured every opportunity his entire career. Like this shit, I don't think it works the way teams.
I don't think it does either.
Deploy it, but it's just every team's like obsessed with this whole notion, and it's gonna be funny to see how this winds up because especially like Scoopball and Crochet, if they get traded, they're gonna pitch till the arm falls off. Or if they stay in the team, they're gonna be shut down in the middle of August. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun case study the rest of the year about stuff like that. But a lot of these teams, they just don't exactly have what the Mets want or need, which is either a corner outfielder, preferably one that can hit left-handed, or a reliever that is somewhat cheap. Like that doesn't exist that much. Like everyone wants Andrew Chafin. He kind of stinks. So, like, I don't know. Like it's Kenta Maeda. Do you want Kenta Maeda pitching out of the bullpen? Probably not. He's been horrendous this year. Shelby Miller. I know he has I mentioned him last week. He has fun pitch stuff, but he's been horrible this year. Like are these the guys do we feel comfortable trading for?
I don't know, man. It's going to be a mess because this bullpen still is a mess. The bullpen is not good, and I can only imagine it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. So like. It's going to drive me crazy, but I don't know what they do. I really don't know what they do because I don't want to go out and end up trading good prospects for a reliever because he had like a hot start to the year, but he's actually complete bullshit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm also confident though David Stearns won't do that. Like Billy Epler's a GM. Yeah. Billy Epler is a GM that other GMs call because they know they can trick him. Like everyone plays in fantasy sports leagues. Like, you know who those GMs are in your league.
Yes.
Where it's
every time.
You could just package up a bunch of bullshit and be like, well, yeah, I mean, like if you get this, like this is an improvement for your second base, and like here's another third outfielder for you. You can get better there. So like just give me your SP2 and let's make this deal. Like everyone knows that guy. Billy Epler was that guy. Where Stearns is the opposite of that guy, and I think that's relevant here. But the other thing we got to talk about is like good transition, just the bullpen. Bullpen's fun.
Yes, so
fully fun.
That's what I'm saying.
Like this version of Edwin Diaz, like this is bad. Like thank God for Dednil Nunez, and maybe like Jose Budo stays there depending on how they do the deadline. Like everyone, thank your lucky stars. But like if we don't, I think we're gonna go out and get some relievers who are not gonna be that cool, not gonna be
Alex
that fun
Young today.
Yeah, like maybe Alex Young might have a 3 ERA for the rest of the season. Like that's something that could happen. But like I think that there's a legitimate chance that we put significant faith in either BMDO or Shintaro Fujinami at some point in the second half. And like they have like their own Linsanity run, like similar to Nunez or Reed Garrett. Like something happens like August 11th to September 9th, like BMDO just he gets like 4 holds and 2 saves for us.
I mean, both of those guys, if there were the next Linsanity run in this bullpen, it would be those guys because they both throw upwards of 100 miles an hour. They both have disgusting breaking balls. Like they have the ability to be good. It's just always been injury concern and strike throwing concern for both of them. They've had issues with both of those things. So if the Mets can get that right, yeah, it would be amazing to have 2 guys who are going to throw over 100 miles an hour in this bullpen. Is that going to happen? I seriously don't know. I would love to not have my faith be in guys who are coming back from injuries that haven't pitched.
Here's the question. I think this has been a hot issue recently. I've gotten some DMs about it and some tweets about it. Do you think there's any chance they call up one of the pitching prospects, specifically the one that can throw 102 miles an hour, Sproat?
The Sproat
to possibly do this, yeah, because this is something that Stearns
has done.
He didn't do that. He did this a little bit with Brandon Woodruff that year they did the playoff run 2018, but I think he was a little older than where Sproat is now. Maybe he wasn't actually. I'll check that right now.
I'm gonna look at it while you talk.
Do you think there's? I was gonna say, do you think there's a chance they do that at all?
So Woodruff was 24.
Okay, Sproat's
when he got
23.
called up and he was 24. So my gut tells me no. My heart tells me yes. My heart tells me yes. Always listen to your heart when it's calling for you. It's one of those things where he really hasn't struggled at any level at all.
Yeah.
And if he's going to throw those innings, or even if this is going to sound crazy, but like if they're worried about him having too many innings, one way to fix that is to put him in the major league bullpen.
It's kind of, right?
Which is kind of the spin zone I'm really convincing myself with right now. I don't know. I mean, that would be a September thing, obviously, for sure. And that would be if the Mets were in dire need of like, wow, we are about to make the playoffs. We need someone who can get people out. That's also a crazy amount of pressure to put someone who is supposed to be like the next great pitcher in this organization under, and just a really easy way to get Mets fans to hate him for no reason as well.
I just got an insane bolt of lightning outside my house.
Is it raining?
Crazy thunderstorm just started that here. But the Sproat thing is weird because in workload wise, I don't think he's really pushing up against anything. Because last year in college, he went through the rigors of an SEC season in a College World Series. He threw 106 innings. And so far this year, he's only at 73. So he's not really, this is like he probably has 120 innings in the bank. And he's at 73 right now. So I guess it does kind of make some sense. But then you might get into a situation, again, we're just playing out the scenario in our head right now, having fun.
Yeah,
what if you get into a situation where he comes like blazing?
Then,
what if he's fucking up? And then what if you're in a situation where you're in the 3-game series, and like maybe Severino or Minaya like are not as efficient or as effective as they were in April.
Go up against a righty heavy lineup, and you're like, I can't throw Jose Quintana today.
Like that's you're almost opening up a can of worms there, where you might be like letting like the rooster into the hen house, where Sproat might just come up and be like, let's play this game, and then like. Because now the way that Christian Scott's gone the last month, the way the Mets have been so weird about his usage, so awkward about everything with him, and also him just struggling with the lefties, he's almost now the guy that makes sense to be the short-term reliever.
I was just about to say.
Because if he can get in that bullpen, that fastball goes from 94, 95 to 96, 97. He also probably only has like 35, 40, 50 more innings at most on that arm the rest of the year. He's already around 100 total innings this year. That is something that makes a lot of sense, and that now, but then the problem is like then you acquire a star, then maybe you go after a guy like Fetty, or you like get someone as depth to just get you to the end of the year. He's pitching well, dude. Like
I can't. If I see Eric Fetty wear a Mets jersey, I'm gonna be sick to my stomach. I'm gonna hunger strike.
All right, if Eric Fetty's a Met, you hunger strike.
I hunger strike. No more hot dogs until then.
Perfect.
He has to throw a no hitter.
Because when Woodruff came up, I'm looking at this thing now just to see anything that Stearns has done similar to this. He came up in 2018 as a starter when he was 24, and he actually started 2017.
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, and then he also did in 2018.
The next year, he went back up and down. He came up, and then he was a beast in relief that 2018 run for the Brewers. He started the game early, and then he went through and he pitched a lot of games in relief and was fantastic, specifically in the NLCS against the Dodgers. Like he struck out 17 batters in 9 innings. Like he was, and he hit a home run. He was a real difference maker for that team. So there is some precedent for this for Stearns, but I think that's one of the things that can maybe save this bullpen, because again, I don't think we're getting a real impact reliever in the deadline. Like, I don't think one even super exists.
I think we also got to bring up Jose Butto. Jose Butto's been incredible out of the bullpen. I said Butto, and I think that's a guy that we expect to continue to be used in the bullpen in the scenario that he's been used in, which is really good. And I'm gonna throw it out there again. I'm hitting up the ex-girlfriend, Tyler McGill. You home? You up? What's going on, brother? Like he's the guy to me that just makes so much sense as the could be the big bullpen arm. Like, why can we try it? Because like, listen, it's probably not happening on the starting pitching side. It seems like I don't know how many times we're going to try that and be like, please figure it out. But maybe in the pen he becomes his brother, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, this 6'6" human is unhittable out of the bullpen.
Someone had this point online, or maybe it was like I think it might have been Zeal or maybe Ronnie on a broadcast last week, where they were talking about the fact of Butto's role, and he's like become this like the Mets have 2 long men, which is a real old school pitching staff thing, because like it's Hauser and Butto, where Butto's like the good long man and Hauser's like the bad long man. But he was saying that if they could do what they're going to do, like they say they're going to do with Senga, move to a 6-man rotation when he's healthy. So then you have 6 starters, and you have and your team are going to have 13 relievers. Or 13 pitchers, 6 starters. Then 2 guys in your bullpen that can't really work on consecutive days, not traditional relievers. That's suddenly 8 pitchers that you have to really manage their innings and really manage when they come in, and then just 5 relievers to rotate through. And of the 5 relievers you have to rotate through, right now 2 of them are kind of unusable, and Adam Ottavino and Jake Diekman.
Yeah.
So now you really just have 3 relievers.
and
so
Edwin
it's like
Diaz
that.
been crazy inconsistent.
Yeah,
Daniel
and then you
Nunez
had
has been awesome. And Reed Garrett, we're like, what is Reed Garrett right now? I don't know.
So this is what I'm saying. So now it becomes a thing where Budo might not be able to stay in this role if they move to a 6-man rotation, or they might just have to get rid of Hauser. That clock might have just come up, and Budo becomes the only long man, because it'll be a strange workaround for those exact 13 pitchers in the bullpen.
Or you just change their role and you now pitch an inning. Like that's just what you're rolling.
That's the other thing. Like, you now become a 1-inning reliever, but then you're also making that concession. We don't think we're going to need you to start the rest of the year, because once you go back one more rung of your workload and the way you warm up and stuff, now it's that much harder to build it back up. So I think that
I'm glad we don't have to make this decision. It's up to the big guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. This is the game. Like, this is the beauty of it. And this is exactly why we're so happy that we have a smart person like David Stearns at the helm instead of Billy Epler, who's just like, I don't fucking know, whatever. Let's figure it out.
So we saw Billy Epler over in Taco Bowls when we were at Citi Field. when we were doing some podcasts during the day. It was, hey Billy, what's going on? You getting taco? All right, how you doing?
It was like 15 minutes before they traded for Brooks Raley. So whoever was in that Taco Ball fucking super worked out. But this also brings us to the next thing that is going to really drive the Mets second half. Something that has not been a part of the first half at all. Something that can totally change the scope of this team. And that's Kodai Senga.
Yeah. I mean, the last time, the best acquisition of the trade deadline.
All right. It's Fred Wilpon right there in the flesh. The baseball history book I'm reading had an unreal Fred Wilpon quote from one of the big strikes in like 81 or something, when they were talking about like free agency compensation. It was right when Jerry Reinsdorf and his then business partner Mark Einhorn bought the White Sox, and they were like the young hotshot owners on the block, and there was always this schism between the National League and the American League, because National League were like, they were the old guard, like they were the first league, like they were the respectable franchises and stuff, and the American League was all these like young hotshots like George Steinbrenner, like trying to like make their way in the world. And like there was this idea that the guys in National League had like a lot more money and like were a lot more regal about their use of money. So Fred Wilpon said that he keeps more money in his pocket than Reinsdorf had to his name.
Nice.
He said that publicly. I don't remember if it was to media or just the other owners, and it got out. But yeah,
I mean, listen, from everything we've heard, Fred Wilpon legend, Jeff Wilpon, dog shit piece of human.
Yes, terrible. But
whatever.
That's their lingo. Like Kodai Senga is gonna be the best acquisition we're gonna make. But in this case, probably it actually is true, because when he pitched the end of the year last year, once he developed his cutter and really got a feel for like his pitch sequencing, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, truly.
Now I will say, I hate that this is also the conversation too, because he's coming back from like not pitching for 6 months, and I don't love that we're like foaming at the mouth. Like, he's not Jacob deGrom. He's not going to come back and just be the best pitcher in baseball. Like, that's not how this works.
Wow, do you think this is our Stockholm syndrome from deGrom? Everyone like really holding their breath for Senga?
1,000,000%. This is the punishment we live with for the rest of our lives.
But it's also there's like a cautionary tale happening the other side of New York right now, where with Garrett Cole, where he came back and then it's like, oh, this isn't actually Garrett Cole. Like, this is a slightly different version of Garrett Cole.
Yeah, it's
like,
Jerry Cole.
Get Jerry Cole with a G. Yeah. But that's kind of something I'm weirdly afraid of with Senga, because like not pitching for this long. He only ever pitched one. Last year was his only year in the major leagues. Like, we only saw him as a rookie, so it's like there's probably like some. And you also like, I know that a lot of times like expected stats and like your like those rate things like Sierra, FIP, and everything, things that you're running away from. It's not that indicative of a pitcher season, because especially with a guy like Senga that made tons of adjustments like coming through, and he has one pitch that's such an out pitch that no one in baseball can figure it out. But there still probably is slight question as to what Kodai Senga's true talent is. Yeah. Like, he probably is between the guy we saw at the beginning of last year and the guy we saw at the end of last year. Like, he probably realistically is a guy who's like a 3-4 ERA guy, not the one who was one of the best pitchers in baseball for the last 3 months of the season when the Mets completely wasted everything he gave them. But so I think that I'm worried about maybe Mets fans or even the Mets team putting a lot, maybe too much, on his shoulders as he returns.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's something to caution Mets fans for, is like, probably like his first 3 starts are probably going to just be okay. Like, don't expect like, oh, he's back 7 innings, 10 Ks, no runs. It's like that's so much to expect for a guy who, I mean, legitimately hasn't pitched in a Major League Baseball game in 10 months. Like, it's been a long time.
It has, and his injury is not an unserious injury. Like, having that back scalpel thing, with Nick Pollock talked to him about it months ago when it happened, fucking February, January. I remember it happened so long ago. I was on a ski mountain. That's how cold it was then. Ooh. But it's like it's a serious thing where if that capsule bursts, like then the whole shoulder's fucked. So it's like this. They've been very cautious with him, and I credit Kodai for being patient with himself, not feeling the pressure, especially with the knowledge of that clause in his contract that if he doesn't get to 240 innings in the next 2 years, then he will not be able to opt out, and it's unlikely he gets there now, given he's missed basically his entire season. So credit to him for being focused on the things he should be focused on or could be focused on. I mean, I'm not saying your money is something you shouldn't be focused on, but good for him for not looking at that and like being like, I have to get back as soon as possible to get these innings. Be like, I have to stay healthy.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely something to monitor as well. And then on the hitting side, I mean, I think it's a legitimate question. Can they stay as hot as they've been? Like, because they're gonna have to be, because the way that this pitching is, the Mets can't afford to like have a week off offensively. They really can't, and that is also a ton of pressure, knowing that you have to show up at the ballpark every day and score about 7 runs to win.
I think the Mets, like the lineup situation, comes down to one true factor and then two like slightly mitigating factors. And the number one is going to be if Pete Alonso has a hot streak in him.
Which, for the love of God, please. Okay, we're doing this again, employing all Mets fans. First game back at Citi Field, Pete Alonso standing ovation. I know he absolutely shit the bed in the home run derby, and people are mad. And I still don't know how people are running with this whole he's only
selfish.
That he's selfish for stealing the spot. The reading comprehension is shockingly low in the Mets community at times, which is very, very concerning to me. He said, I'm only doing the home run derby if I'm an all-star, because he doesn't want to go to Dallas and then fly home the next day. These guys get a break when they're not in the all-star game, something that I wish Pete Alonso had. That being said, he is a golden retriever. He knows he's been making mistakes. He's in the corner right now. He's got his head. He's got the little cone of shame on. He's upset. He's frustrated. He doesn't feel good. He's stressing the fuck out. I mean, reports came out that Pete is major pressing about this contract. Let's try our best to welcome him back, make it easy for him. He has been one of the best hitters that we have seen on the New York Mets in terms of hitting home runs ever. And for some reason, whatever happened this year, Mets fans have now turned. I mean, we know it is the contract negotiation thing, but now there's a group of Mets fans that are becoming more and more vocal and more closer to the majority that are just not really good for Pete's head. And that's a problem in of itself. Yeah, you could say Pete needs to be tough or whatever it is, sure. But we have the opportunity to hopefully build up one of our players like we did with Francisco Lindor. It literally fucking worked. Trey Turner, it works. Like, Alec Boehm's a fucking all-star. He said, I fucking hate this city. And the asshole Philly fans cheered him after that. Like, we're talking shit on one of the best Mets home run hitters of all time. It drives me nuts. We need him to get hot, though, desperately bad, because the other guys are due to regress just a little bit, because they're humans. It's baseball. It is hard.
And that's also how baseball works. Like, you pick each other up. Like, there's a lineup of 9 guys every single day. Sometimes it's nice when all 9 hit, but it's hard to get everyone together at the same time. And now when everyone else was really hot and Pete was cold, this whole thing will turn on his head. If he stays cold, everybody else now gets a little cold too. But it's natural that players will get hot and cold, because, again, that's how baseball works. And the first game we have home, I don't know if you know the schedule of the second half. Of course, I have it memorized. We have a 4-game set against the Braves next weekend, Thursday to Sunday.
Wow,
and that's like
almost going to 4 games type thing.
Yeah, I think I'll probably only get to 1 myself. But that Thursday night game against the Braves, we're going to be coming off 2-game set against the Yankees. We're going to have 4 games against the Marlins. It's going to be 5 days before the trade deadline. That's going to be a remarkably important series to the rest of this Mets season.
Yeah,
like that's a series where if you get swept 4 games, like the trade deadline conversation changes on
drastically
in a second. Like in 4
Especially
days,
if you lose.
Never mind.
If you lose any of the games against the Marlins and Yankees.
Yeah, like if you split the Marlins and you lose 2 of the Yankees, then that Braves series kind of determines the season. And it's the exact same time a year, 2 years ago, where we thought it determined the season, but didn't determine the season because we won 4 out of 5 because we had a stupid 5-game series. But that's going to be remarkably important. And I think just this Mets second half, it kind of feels like it's a gut feeling for me, just fandom inside. It's going to be driven a little bit by Pete Alonso. And it could wind up being like the lasting mark in memory of his Mets career, which is kind of sad to think about, but it's possible this is the last we ever have Pete Alonso on this team. So instead of being mad at him about it, let's just watch him for a few months and be excited that he's still a really good baseball player and can still really help us win games.
Yeah, I mean, I tweet at 3 a.m. every week apparently now about how much I miss Jacob deGrom. I know I'm going to be doing that about Pete Alonso too if he's not a Met in the future. Like, I'm like, damn, this dude was so fucking awesome. I can't believe he was on this team and we let him go. Like, what are we going to do? He needs to get hot. Yeah, I'm not concerned about Nimmo Lindor. I mean, they're superstars. They're unbelievable. Just keep doing what they're doing. I have no comments on them. Same thing with JD Martinez. I think the All-Star break's going to be good for him. He started to look a little bit tired going into the All-Star break. The back got a little bit slow towards the end, but I'm sure he'll turn it around. Vientos and Alvarez will be also super important just because they had great first halves. I want to say a little bit unexpected at how well they even played. Like, we were always a huge Alvarez guy, but you guys forget he kind of started this year off kind of slow, and then just got scorching hot as the Mets offense did. If those guys can continue to carry the bottom of the order, that's huge. We could really use it. Making that lineup deeper makes this team a lot better.
Yeah, and Alvarez, a lot of the things that he needed to improve, he still hasn't even really gotten that much better at.
Yeah.
Like, he still chases the ball outside the strike zone a little much. Sometimes he gets a little bit too selective when he should be a little more aggressive, a little bit more aggressive when he should be too selective. He doesn't have the approach like perfectly down pat yet. And right now he's like the strikeouts he's reduced well and the walks he's improved on, but it's still he's been this good and really actually hasn't clicked yet, which is kind of the most incredible thing about him. Whereas Vientos, everything looks great, and I think everyone's just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I don't know. Like, I think that's what I'm saying. I spend a lot of my time both in conversations with just Mets fans and people who are like really dense, deep fantasy baseball players, and the Mets fans, which is weird, this never happens, are so much more confident in Mark Vientos than the fantasy baseball people. Because fantasy baseball people like stick to the narratives, keep to their prospect list, keep to all this pedigree stuff. So it's going to be a strange dichotomy whether how good each of these guys continue to be, because it's important. It's not the most important thing, but as far as them extending this lineup, really driving in a lot of runs, like living in the 5 and 6 holes, they've been incredibly important over the last few weeks, months to get this team where it is.
Kind of the unsung heroes of this team, because it's easy to talk about the big names, but without these guys, I mean, this team is well below 500. So especially with what Alvarez has been able to do defensively and just being a leader for this team, it's unbelievable. It can't be spoken enough about. The other two players I want to talk about here to kind of wrap up the second half preview, Jeff McNeil, Starling Marte. These are probably the two actually legitimate biggest question marks on the offense moving forward in the second half. Will Starling Marte ever come back, James? Gun to your head, Starling Marte. There's 65 games left. Does he play 30 or more? The line is 30 and a half games, over under.
Slightly under. 25.
Okay. 25. I tend to believe the same way. I'm going to say something crazy. I'm not really in a rush to get him back either. The offense has been proven without him.
I'm in a rush. We have a gaping hole in the corner outfield.
But he was so bad defensively that I'm almost okay with giving up that because everybody else is hitting. That being said, if he ever decides to run after balls or remember how to play right field, that will be incredibly valuable because he actually was swinging like a league average bat, which is significally better than what Tyrone Taylor gave us.
Yeah, well, Tyrone Taylor's also, he's been good, but he just can't. He gets exposed playing every day, and then. But that again, I keep coming back to it. It seems like the spot to me where if I were the Mets, that might be where I was most aggressive at the trade deadline.
Yes.
Like going after a real corner outfielder that can continue to add to this already very good lineup, because there's definitely some concern with Marte and also with Jeff, who's been playing corner outfield since Iglesias has been hot and since Marte went down, where there's not really anything in the profile that makes you think that Jeff McNeil could turn this around. It's really just a vibes thing, and the fact that those last few games before the break, he looked a little more comfortable. He looked a little bit more relaxed. He just seemed that he was swinging it a little bit better. The bat path, the pitch selection, everything seemed where it wasn't as good as it was when he was good, but definitely was not as bad as it was for the last few weeks. That's something where if you even get one of those guys playing their best baseball, everything kind of changes a lot quickly.
I mean, I don't even think we even need Jeff playing his best baseball. We just need him to play like a Major League Baseball player at this point. Like he has negative WAR this year. Like that's insane for a guy who's he is valuable in the field because he's a good second baseman, plays good outfield. That's how bad the bat has been for Jeff this year. He's completely killed any value that he's had from defense on the base pass, whatever it's been. It's shocking, especially when you look at the splits too. Jeff's hitting 180 at home with a 493 OPS. On the road, 259 with a 708. If we can get 259 with a 708 for Jeff McNeil in total in the second half, dangerous things could be happening with this Mets team. And that is a bad year for Jeff McNeil. I want that to be known.
Yeah, literally, if he becomes a league average hitter and Starling Marte becomes a league average fielder, suddenly this team, top to bottom, 1 through 9, you don't want to fuck with.
No, you do not want to run into them. You're like, holy shit, lineup wise, this is a tough team to get out.
And Then you could bring like Jose Iglesias back into probably some kind of super utility role, which is probably where he's best served. I know everything has been amazing so far, but he's someone who's definitely due to regress. Like I don't think Jose Iglesias is going to keep up his five warp season pace that he's on so far this season, which is significantly better, almost 3 times better than Luis Arias. But that's a weird thing. And then the other weird tiny little caveat I'm going to throw in here last second, just so everyone keeps thinking about it. Drew Gilbert. Gilbert's going to be playing in AAA games probably by the end of next week before the trade deadline. I think that he's someone who the Mets are secretly, quietly hoping can be a difference maker. Can be like a little lightning rod, can bring a little bit of athleticism, a little bit of fire, a little bit of fury, can have a little bit better bat than Harrison Bader and play center field well enough to play there sometimes. That's something that I think the Mets are hoping can kind of bring them and maybe make a tiny little difference here.
Yeah, I mean, even if you, let's just say that's your platoon with Tyrone in right field, right? I mean, Tyrone gets to just face the lefties, Drew Gilbert versus the righties. That's something that could really help this team out too. I know we talked about like he'd be such a nice little spark, a little juice to bring to this team, but the team's got juice now with these young guys that have been playing and how they're vibing. So I'm interested to see what the Mets are going to do. The second half is going to be crazy, as we told you on opening day before anything happened. This team is going to finish 5 games above 500 or 5 games below 500. 5 games above, they make the playoffs. 5 games below, they miss the playoffs. It is going to be a tediously long second half, without a doubt. There are going to be games that feel like are on for 7 or 8 hours, and you're going to be like, oh, it's only 9:30 at night. I'm exhausted. Time to go to bed. It's going to be long. It's going to be tall, but you got to love some baseball, and the Mets are going to be playing it.
And this is all we should really be asking for as fans, because we're in a spot right now on July 18th. Second half's going to start tomorrow. Every single game the Mets are going to play, at least for the next month, is important. Like if we should be in front of our TV at Citi Field as much as possible, because this is critical. Like this team could make the playoffs. Like making the playoffs is fun. Like I love making the playoffs. If we make the playoffs this year and next year, Mark, you know what that would be? The first time in Mets history they made the playoffs in consecutive years. Like that would be a really relevant thing.
That's not true.
No, I know. I don't think the 2016 playoffs count.
Well, okay, but you're going to count this wild card? That's a little nonsense.
3 games. That was 1 game. 1 game is bullshit.
Oh my god. Okay, that was a harder wild card to make. There was less.
It was, but it's not the playoffs.
Oh my god. All right. I'll let it go.
And also, even if the team is able to make the playoffs, like the playoff matchups would be likely either the Braves or the Brewers, which both of those playoff matchups, like if you're a Mets fan, you can't get juiced up for the storylines that could come from either of those playoff series, the 3-game series in either of those places. Like you have to check your pulse because you're not fucking breathing right now. Like I would love insane.
To spend 3 days in Atlanta in September or in October. That'd be amazing.
I don't know if I would.
If we're lucky enough to have to play the Braves in the playoffs, I'm locked in. The price doesn't matter. I got to be down there.
I just there's a lot at stake for this team in the second half right now. It's amazing that we've made this much progress in the first year with a completely new regime, with half of the team as pure mercenaries on 1-year contracts, the other half of the team being guys who we found out of fucking nowhere. It's just this is a fun spot to be for this team right now, and I think that with the growth that we've seen in the first half should make every single Mets fan really excited about what could happen in the second half. And if it's not going to be exciting, you know it's going to be entertaining in a really horrible, painful way.
Yeah, again, we just went through 30 different events that happened in 80 games that were noteworthy to talk about, and we definitely forgot some. So at the absolute worst, you will get some entertainment and drama out of these New York Mets, as you always do. Guys, that's going to be it for our second half preview. Actually, before we do end it, James, I got one question. Do the Mets make the playoffs, yes or no?
Yes.
Wow, yes. Okay, what's the reasoning?
They've been playing fucking well. Like I think that if you look at the rest of the National League, I don't think these teams are that good. And like I also don't think the Mets are that good, but I think they're slightly better than the rest of the teams. Like I don't know. Like the Padres, the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks, like none of these teams, the Pirates I guess might be the best one, but none of these teams really scare me. And like we were lucky to have beaten a lot of these teams head to head already this season. So we already have a leg up, and just gotta wait for the Padres to lose a few more games, fall a little bit further in the standings, and I think we got a good shot here.
You got to believe. I'm with you. I think the Mets can make the postseason. I think they will make the postseason. The vibes are good. OMG. The vibes are too good. Keep them rolling and keep winning some games. Make sure you follow us on all our social media at Mets'd on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. What, you got a fly going on in there? You've been swinging that hand
tiny little fly around me for like the last 10 minutes.
Little gnat. You got to get those Mr. Miyagi hands. You're not working.
I don't want to like make any sounds though.
Oh, you'd be fine. You're editing this. You could edit that out. But yeah,
That's true.
follow us on our social media at Mets'd Up. If you're watching the YouTube video or want to, Mets'd Up Podcast. Really do appreciate you guys over there. If you're listening to us, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, drop us a rating, drop us a review. We will shout you out. We do have a new one.
Nice.
This is an interesting one coming from Daniel Larson. Anybody who's on TikTok, shout out Daniel Larson fans. That dude's crazy. Wonderful podcast, which is an interesting way to describe it. People don't use wonderful usually, but I like Daniel Larson. Oh, it's Daniel with an A. Danial Larson. Interesting. Didn't know that's how you could spell Daniel. 5 stars. Thank you. I love falling asleep to this after the Mets blow a 5-1 lead in the 9th while I cry myself to sleep remembering the 2022 days.
I gotta say, I can't even imagine someone falling asleep to this podcast. Like, that's hilarious. It's that conceptually someone could like sleep listening to our voices.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that we're at least entertaining enough where you don't want to fall asleep, or maybe we're so comforting to the ears that people are like, wow, what a great nap I just had listening to Mets'd Up Podcast.
What amazing voices these two have. We could do Mets'd Up ASMR.
I think on one of these episodes on YouTube, we're going to do a like goal for an ASMR podcast where the just whisper into the podcast.
The Mets blew the save.
Oh, I hate this so much. All right, that's it. Enough. End the episode. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.
Peace out. See you guys next time. Let's fucking go, Mets.